Imagine waking up one morning and turning on the faucet, but nothing comes out, not because the pipes are broken, but because there is simply no water left. It sounds impossible. Yet for millions of people around the world, water scarcity is already a daily reality. And if current trends continue, this crisis may become one of the defining challenges of the 21st century. The question is no longer whether water is valuable, it's whether there will be enough of it for everyone. For more than a century, one resource shaped the modern world: oil. It fueled industrial revolutions, powered economies, built trillion-dollar corporations, and determined the rise and fall of nations. Some countries became global superpowers simply because they controlled it, while others spent decades fighting wars to secure it. From the deserts of the Middle East to the oil fields of Texas and the frozen Arctic, the pursuit of black gold changed the course of human history. Governments were overthrown, borders were redrawn, fortunes were created overnight, and millions of lives were forever altered. For generations, the world's greatest geopolitical question was surprisingly simple. Whoever controlled the oil controlled the future. But history has a habit of changing the rules when nobody expects it. Today, another resource is quietly becoming more valuable with every passing year. Unlike oil, it cannot be manufactured, replaced, or negotiated away. Every civilization, every economy, and every person on Earth depends on it. Yet most of us use it every single day without giving it a second thought. What if the next global crisis isn't about energy? What if the next trillion-dollar industry isn't artificial intelligence, rare earth minerals, or even space exploration? What if the world's most valuable resource has been flowing through our hands this entire time? Fresh water. For thousands of years, humanity believed water was limitless. Rivers flowed, rain returned every season, lakes refilled, and glaciers stood frozen for centuries. Water simply seemed endless. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary has been happening. The world's freshwater reserves are shrinking. Ancient underground aquifers that took thousands of years to fill are being drained in only decades. Some of the planet's greatest rivers no longer reach the sea for part of the year, while entire regions are slowly running out of reliable drinking water. At the very same time, demand continues to rise. The world's population is growing, cities are expanding, agriculture consumes more water than ever before, and modern industries require enormous amounts just to keep daily life functioning. For the first time in modern history, humanity is beginning to face a terrifying reality. Water may no longer be abundant. It may become the most valuable resource on Earth. Some analysts have already given it a new name: blue gold. But if water is becoming more valuable than oil, who will own it? Who will control it? And what happens when billions of people depend on a resource that is becoming increasingly scarce? The answers to those questions could shape the future of civilization itself. And to understand where this story is heading, we first need to understand how water quietly became one of the world's most strategic assets. For centuries, access to water was largely determined by geography. If a civilization was built near a river, a lake, or a reliable source of fresh water, it had the opportunity to prosper. If it wasn't, survival became a constant struggle. But in the modern world, geography is no longer the only factor that determines who has access to water. Today, ownership of infrastructure can be just as powerful as ownership of the water itself. Think about it for a moment. Water doesn't simply appear when you turn on a faucet. It travels through an enormous network of reservoirs, treatment plants, pumping stations, pipelines, and distribution systems. Behind every glass of clean drinking water lies billions of dollars worth of infrastructure. Whoever builds, operates, and maintains that infrastructure holds tremendous influence over one of humanity's most essential resources. As water scarcity becomes more common, investors have started paying close attention. Around the world, governments are spending billions to modernize aging water systems, while private companies are developing new technologies to filter, transport, recycle, and manage fresh water more efficiently. What was once considered a basic public service is increasingly becoming a major economic sector. The bottled water industry is perhaps the clearest example of this transformation. In many parts of the world, people now pay more per liter for bottled water than they do for gasoline. A resource that once seemed almost free has become a product sold in supermarkets, airports, hotels, and vending machines across the globe. The value isn't just in the water itself, it's in controlling the supply, the distribution, and the trust of consumers. Financial markets have also begun treating water differently. Investment funds focused on water infrastructure, purification technology, and utility companies have attracted growing attention over the past decade. Many analysts believe that as populations expand and climate pressures intensify, businesses capable of providing reliable access to clean water could become some of the most valuable companies of the future. Yet this growing financial interest also raises difficult questions. If clean water becomes increasingly profitable, who benefits? Should access to water be driven primarily by markets, or should it remain a public responsibility? Supporters of privatization argue that private investment brings innovation, efficiency, and much-needed capital. Critics warn that treating water as a commodity risks making one of life's most basic necessities dependent on the ability to pay. This debate is no longer theoretical. Across different parts of the world, communities have already experienced disputes over water pricing, shortages, and control of local resources. As demand continues to rise, these tensions are likely to become even more common. But despite these economic and political challenges, an even greater threat is beginning to emerge. It's a threat that cannot be solved simply by investing more money or building more pipelines, because in many places the water itself is starting to disappear. And if that trend continues, the next conflicts between nations may not be fought over oil fields or natural gas reserves. They may be fought over rivers, lakes, and the last reliable sources of fresh water. If all of this continues, the world may be entering an era unlike anything humanity has experienced before. Throughout history, nations have gone to war over land, oil, gold, and strategic trade routes. But in the decades ahead, one of the greatest sources of conflict may be something far more fundamental: fresh water. The warning signs are already visible. Across the globe, rivers that have sustained civilizations for thousands of years are shrinking. Glaciers, which supply fresh water to billions of people, are melting at an accelerating pace. Underground aquifers that took centuries, and in some cases thousands of years, to fill are being depleted far faster than nature can replenish them. Once these reserves are exhausted, they cannot simply be replaced within a human lifetime. Climate change is making the situation even more unpredictable. Longer droughts, rising temperatures, and changing rainfall patterns are placing enormous pressure on water supplies. Regions that once enjoyed reliable rainfall are experiencing severe shortages, while growing populations continue to increase demand year after year. Every new city, every expanding industry, and every additional hectare of farmland requires more fresh water than the planet can sustainably provide in many regions. Water scarcity is no longer just an environmental issue. It is becoming an economic challenge, a public health concern, and an increasingly important national security issue. When farmers lose access to irrigation, food production declines. When reservoirs fall to critically low levels, electricity generation from hydroelectric dams is reduced. When entire communities lose reliable access to clean water, migration increases, putting additional pressure on neighboring regions and governments. Some experts believe that future geopolitical tensions will be shaped as much by water as they are by energy. Many of the world's largest rivers cross international borders, meaning that multiple countries depend on the same source. As demand increases and supplies become less predictable, disagreements over how that water is shared could become more frequent. Cooperation remains possible, but so does competition. Perhaps the greatest danger is that this crisis develops slowly enough for many people to ignore it. Unlike a financial crash or a natural disaster, water shortages often build over years, quietly weakening agriculture, economies, and communities before the full consequences become visible. By the time reservoirs run dry or groundwater is exhausted, reversing the damage can become extraordinarily difficult. Yet despite these challenges, this is not a story of inevitable collapse. Humanity has solved enormous problems before through innovation, investment, and international cooperation. The question is whether we are willing to act before the crisis reaches a point where the available solutions become far more expensive or no longer enough, because the future is not written yet. The choices governments, businesses, and individuals make today will determine whether water becomes the cause of tomorrow's greatest conflicts or the foundation of a more sustainable world. And that raises one final question. If the future can still be changed, what must we do now? So, what comes next? Is the world simply heading toward an unavoidable water crisis, or is there still time to change the outcome? The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. Humanity already has many of the technologies needed to protect one of its most precious resources. The real challenge is not whether solutions exist, but whether they can be implemented quickly enough. Around the world, engineers are developing advanced desalination plants capable of turning seawater into fresh drinking water. Countries with limited natural freshwater resources have invested heavily in these technologies, proving that even the ocean can become a reliable source of clean water. However, desalination remains expensive, consumes large amounts of energy, and is not a perfect solution for every nation. At the same time, new water recycling systems are transforming the way cities manage their supplies. Instead of treating wastewater as something to discard, many communities are learning to clean and reuse it safely. Modern treatment facilities can produce water that meets extremely high safety standards, reducing pressure on rivers, lakes, and underground aquifers. Agriculture also has a critical role to play. Farming accounts for the largest share of global freshwater use, yet millions of liters are still wasted every day through outdated irrigation methods. Technologies such as precision irrigation, soil moisture monitoring, and drought-resistant crops allow farmers to produce more food while using significantly less water. Even small improvements, when adopted on a large scale, can save enormous amounts of fresh water. Businesses are beginning to rethink their own responsibilities as well. Many industries now recognize that water is not an unlimited resource and that long-term profitability depends on using it more efficiently. Companies are investing in recycling systems, reducing industrial waste, and developing products that require less water throughout their production process. Protecting water is no longer just an environmental goal, it is becoming an economic necessity. Governments face perhaps the greatest responsibility of all. In many countries, aging pipelines lose vast amounts of clean water before it ever reaches homes and businesses. Modernizing infrastructure, protecting rivers and wetlands, regulating groundwater extraction, and encouraging sustainable water management will require long-term planning and political commitment. These investments may seem costly today, but the price of doing nothing could be far greater. Yet technology alone cannot solve this challenge. No invention can create unlimited fresh water if humanity continues to waste it faster than nature can replace it. Every drop that is polluted, every river that is neglected, and every aquifer that is overused brings the world one step closer to a future where clean water becomes increasingly difficult to secure. The future of water will not be determined by a single breakthrough or one government policy. It will be shaped by millions of decisions made every day, by leaders, businesses, farmers, engineers, and ordinary people. The choices we make now will decide whether future generations inherit a world of growing shortages or one where clean water remains available for all. And in the end, that may become the greatest measure of civilization itself. Because history has shown that every great society rises by protecting its most essential resources and declines when it fails to do so. Which brings us to one final question. What kind of future are we choosing today? The future of water will not be decided by nature alone. It will be decided by the choices humanity makes today. For generations, we believed fresh water would always be there whenever we needed it. It flowed through our rivers, filled our lakes, and disappeared from our minds the moment we turned on a faucet. We treated it as an unlimited resource because for most of modern history it seemed that way. But the 21st century is forcing us to confront a very different reality. Unlike oil, there is no substitute for water. Nations can replace coal with renewable energy. Cars can switch from gasoline to electricity. New technologies can replace old industries, and innovation can solve countless problems. But no technology can replace the simple necessity of clean, fresh water. Without it, there is no agriculture, no economy, no public health, and no civilization. The warning signs are already here. Rivers are shrinking. Glaciers are disappearing. Underground aquifers are being depleted faster than they can recover. At the same time, the world's population continues to grow, cities continue to expand, and the demand for fresh water increases every single year. This is no longer a distant possibility. It is a reality unfolding in front of us. The question is no longer whether water will become one of the world's most valuable resources. It already is. The real question is whether humanity will choose cooperation over competition, long-term planning over short-term profit, and sustainability over waste. The decisions made during the next few decades will influence not only the environment but also global economies, political stability, food production, and the lives of billions of people. History has taught us that every great civilization depends on the resources it protects. Those that manage them wisely endure. Those that exhaust them eventually decline. Water is no different. It is the invisible foundation beneath every city, every harvest, every industry, and every society on Earth. The moment we stop taking it for granted may be the moment we finally understand its true value. Perhaps the next great global race will not be for oil, gold, or even artificial intelligence. It may be for the last reliable sources of fresh water. Not because water creates wealth, but because it makes every form of wealth possible in the first place. Oil helped build the modern world. but water will determine whether the modern world can endure. If this documentary changed the way you think about one of Earth's most essential resources, consider subscribing to Echoes of Finance. Every week we explore the hidden forces that shape the global economy, the biggest financial disasters in history, and the powerful stories behind money, resources, and the future of our world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next documentary.